It's time for Taking Care of Business on Midlands 103. With thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Hello and good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. I'm Ronan Berry, this is Midlands 103, and coming up over the next hour, well, the 1st of July is a significant date for businesses for many, many reasons. One, of course, is it being the day that the VAT rate for hospitality reduces back to 9%. So the questions we have: will cheaper VAT mean cheaper coffees? Well, not necessarily. If you look at the media stuff from the government today and press releases and some sound bites, I'll play you one of those a little while too. You would suggest no, that a lot of this really has been put aside by businesses, I think, to offset the increased cost of doing business. But we'll go and talk to a business owner that very much is affected by that very VAT rate. Nicky, the owner of the fabulous Sip Coffee Garden in Ballymore, will join me in a little while to talk about what that means for the industry and what difference it might actually make. Also, more childcare places, more jobs and more confidence in Athlone's future. Regina Bushell, the Manager Director of Grovelands Childcare, will be along to discuss their latest expansion and what it says about the Midlands and regional economy. They've celebrated a major milestone in the business recently, so Regina will tell us all about that too. And the government has extended the temporary fuel excise reductions. Remember, they were to last for a couple of months. Well, that couple of months is now up, so tomorrow, as again, represents a significant day for many businesses. Those excise reductions will continue for another few months, and then there'll be a phased off approach as we get to the end of 2026, which, if I have to remind you, is only 6 months away. That's where we are. That's the point of the year we're at in the summer. But Ger Hyland, the Managing Director of Hyland Transport and, of course, the President of the Irish Road Haulage Association, will be along to talk about what those reductions mean, how important it was to stretch them out, and whether it does enough for their very sector. That and a whole lot more coming up on the show tonight. If you want to join the conversation, you can do so by text or WhatsApp on 083 3010 103, powered by Lamb Brothers Toyota on the Arden Road in Tullamore. But to begin this evening, as we approach July, you will also be reminded and remember that the National Ploughing Championships aren't too far away at this stage, and a call to action is going out for Midlands food and drink producers to register their interest in exhibiting at the Midlands Flavours Marquee at the upcoming 2026 National Ploughing Championships. And as we know, it's about much more than farming these days, and it really is a fantastic showcase for many, many smaller businesses and local businesses to put themselves out there into an arena that attracts a national and often some elements of an international audience too. So to find out more about this, about the Midlands Flavours Network, I'm delighted to be joined by Bernie Everard, Midlands Flavours Network Manager. Good evening, Bernie.
Hi, Ronan. How are you?
Bernie, just maybe give listeners a quick recap. Tell us about Midlands Flavours, how it came about and what you strive to do.
Yeah, Midlands Flavours came as a result of just transition funding that came into the Midlands for Laois, Offaly, Westmeath and Longford to elevate the food and drink sector across the region. So that's I started in that role 2 years ago, funded under that fund, which finished there in March, and the 4 Leo offices have since come together to support the network going forward through a different funding mechanism. So really it's all about elevating the producers, putting them on a national stage across the region, across the country and internationally. And we gained real momentum in the 18 months of its existence. Last year we had a fantastic showing at the ploughing. We had a very large marquee. Again, that was funded under the Just Transition Fund, and we aim to bring the marquee back to the ploughing. So it's the first time the ploughing have had a dedicated local producers food presence, and we were actually, the marquee was voted in the top 10 marquees to visit during the event last year. So we had producers from across the region selling their products. We had cooking demos in the morning and the afternoon that brought people into the marquee. They were able to see how the products could be used and recipes, and then they could turn around, meet the producers and buy the product. So it was a fantastic success, and the call for expression of interest has gone out there in the last few days, and we're looking for producers from any of the 4 counties.
And regular listeners to the show will know that from time to time we've showcased and featured many of those fantastic producers. And I'm not surprised to hear that she got an award or commended last year for the marquee. It really was visually very stunning and really well laid out, and you kind of chose not to fill the centre aisles but to have the exhibitors around the outside, and people could see, and again, the vast amount of Midlands food companies that were there. Do you aim to repeat that again this year and expand upon the concept?
Absolutely. I mean, again, funding will always be the issue, but hopefully we will pull together the funds needed. And that centre aisle being free gave visibility to the producers, and then it allowed us fill that space with chairs when the cooking demos were taking place. So it really served a great purpose, and everybody had great visibility. No one had a bad spot, and that's what made it a really special marquee. How
important is it for businesses to put themselves out there like that, and particularly at something like the Ploughing Championships, where you really get an audience of well over 200,000 people that can flow through a marquee in a very short space of time?
Oh, it's unbelievable. And, when you come together under one roof, or one tent in this case, the costs are there's economies of scale. So there's like joined up marketing. People are sharing each other's Instagram stories, the collaboration. I saw producers, introducing their customers to the neighbouring producers. So there's a real kind of sense of community. And we all know, the ploughing is so big, and for a producer to go on their own, they'll be lost, absolutely. And the cost would be too high for them. So this allows them for a cost-effective solution and to share in the whole sense of the event.
And you build a little demonstration area in the centre last year too, and you had some well-known chefs and different people come in and actually showcasing the very best of Midlands produce on the days.
We did, yeah. We had a lady Yvonne Carthy, she has a business, Hey Pesto, and she is so passionate about Midlands products, and she actually created recipes, really interesting recipes with products that were all in the marquee, and that created great interest. And it's kind of continued on beyond that. That kind of started something very special, a momentum, and the recipes she's developed have been used over and over since then.
Absolutely. And again, so much fantastic produce. I suppose some key details. Is there a cost involved for businesses to get in? Is it subsidised? And more importantly, if they want to get an expression of interest in, because I think Friday, the 3rd of July, so next Friday is the closing date, how can they go about doing that?
It is. So if they send an email to info@midlandsrep.ie and just ask for the expression of interest form, or even send a message on Midlands Flavours Instagram page. There will be a cost to the producer this year. Unfortunately, we can't fully fund it, but it's still way less than what it would be if they were going there on their own.
Absolutely, and I've seen that kind of replicated across many different kind of enterprise tents throughout the Ploughing Championships, where there is a fee involved, but it's very modest in comparison if you were going taking out your own individual exhibition stand. So info@midlandsrep.ie if somebody's looking to get in touch, get the expression of interest form, and I suppose get working in it now and get their spot reserved. Bernie, thanks so much for that this evening.
Thanks, Ronan. Thank you.
There you go. That's Bernie Everard, the network manager at Midlands Flavours. You can just Google them there, check them out too, and find out. And again, I say you'd know so many of the companies involved and who are now part of that grouping and showcasing their products. So if you are a food producer across Laois, Offaly, Longford or Westmeath, and you'd like to get your spot at the National Ploughing Championships, get your expression of interest in, and who knows, you could be there in Tullamore in September. Time now for a quick break though. After that, we will look at the VAT rate, dropping back to 9% from tomorrow morning. What does it mean for consumers? What will it mean for businesses? And might it be that very survival mechanism that many, many businesses have been crying out for?
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Tomorrow is the day. The 9% VAT rate for the hospitality sector is back, splitting the difference between restaurants, dining and hotel stays. But what does the dual rate system mean for independent businesses fighting rising costs, and will consumers actually see any savings? Our reporter Courtney Callahan spoke with Enterprise Minister and Longford Westmeath TD Peter Burke in Mullingar yesterday to find out more.
Those businesses you see on the main streets of our towns and villages, our cafés, our restaurants, or support them with local employment, which drives so much economic activity in our communities. It'll be a very important jobs measure as well, I believe.
And what kind of evidence has convinced the government that this measure is necessary? Because, of course, in the Midlands, we have seen a number of small businesses close down in the last year or two.
Well, this is the area that businesses are under pressure. If you look at the CSO data over the last year, quarter to quarter, it shows an 8.8% contraction in food services and hospitality. That points to evidence. We also conducted research with our own department, which clearly points out that this is a key area that's under pressure due to increased costs. A lot of minimum wage workers are employed in this sector, and they have faced the increased regulatory burden over the last number of years. And critically, we need to see this sector grow, because it really means so much to so many people in small villages and towns right around the country. People, it's so part of their social activity to get a coffee, to go to a restaurant, to get their hair cut, and that really needs to be supported. And that's why, as a government, we're supporting jobs growth. We're doing it based on evidence, and this is critical here, and also ensuring that in the wider economy that it supports them clearly over the next number of years.
And hotels have been excluded from the VAT rate, so some people are saying that it might create an uneven playing field within hospitality. What would you say to that?
I don't believe so. All evidence points to the fact that the cost pressures are in food services, are in our restaurants. In relation to hotel accommodation, the margins are greater than you will get in food services. Our data shows that the gross margin and net margin is under significant pressure in food services and catering and restaurants, and that's why this measure will support them, and critically aligned with our new tourism policy, a new era for Irish tourism, which we want to see growth in the sector again, looking for 6 and 7% growth in our domestic and overseas revenue per annum, and the 46,000 businesses that operate in that space would all benefit from increased activity, increased flow of cash, and critically trying to drive that economic activity in our towns and villages that are so important to have businesses like these on the main street.
That's Minister for Enterprise, Tourism and Employment, Peter Burke, speaking to Midlands 103's Courtney Callaghan yesterday. And he talked about the difference between the hospitality and the food service versus hotels. And of course, this does apply to hairdressers and not beauticians. So there's some kind of intricacy in it there too that can be looked at on the department website. But if we look at their official press release today, those very businesses that Minister Burke spoke about there, they reckon they employ about 150,000 people in the food service and indeed the hairdressing sector across the country alone, and that these measures, this reduction in VAT, is targeted to give them the assistance they need. The CSO data for those sectors show that 99% are SMEs, with over half of those businesses being micro enterprises. That means they employ less than 10 people. And in terms of benefits for this measure, looking at available data, is expected that approximately 85% of the benefits will go to SMEs. Let's see what this means to people on the ground, to people who owned cafés around the Midlands. And let's go to Ballymore, to Nicky O'Callaghan from Sip Coffee Garden. Nicky set up back in 2022, so I'm going to hazard a guess, has seen many ups and downs in the couple of years since. Good evening, Nicky.
Good evening, Ronan.
Nicky,
thanks for having us on here.
You've always been a strong voice around the 9% VAT rate. You know, when it was put back up again, you were one of the businesses that was really calling for the VAT 9 to be brought back down. Tomorrow is the day. Now, I know there's been a 6-month delay or more from Budget 2026. What does tomorrow mean for your business?
Oh, look, we look forward to tomorrow. Sure, I suppose the effects of it will really come into play when we hopefully have to pay a slightly smaller VAT return in September. So, look, we'll embrace it. Peter is absolutely right. The 4.5% reduction for us, say we're in this, we're only a section of the people it applies to. But for us it is just to steady the ship, just to allow that bit of room to maybe grow again. And, we are a young business and have seen the kind of roller coaster effect. But before all that, I had no benchmark. So I suppose I was a bit vocal about, gosh, what's going on here, But it is good to see that, I suppose, the evidence is definitely there that this is, support was needed. So, look, it's great to get it. And as Simon Harris kind of said earlier there, they're under a bit of pressure. It's supposed to be a permanent fix to 9%, so we may trust the process, Ronan.
Hopefully. I think if people hear it's permanent, it might give a little bit of reassurance as well. Take us through the practicalities of this evening. Is there extra work has to be done to prep for this from midnight when this new VAT rate comes back in?
Only a little. So only certain products will be kind of affected by it. It'll be kind of hot food sit-in, hot food takeaway in our business anyway. I suppose confectionery and drinks it doesn't apply to, and any cold foods it doesn't, because they're 0% anyway. But certainly for me, from a VAT return perspective, that'll be the major change. I'll update my POS system to suit.
I think before on the show you told me that there was a slightly different VAT rate on croissants if they had chocolate or not. Do I remember that correctly?
I did. Yes. If you had a certain tray baked that had over a percentage of chocolate onto it, you had to charge 23%, whereas it would be less if it hadn't cocoa. But that goes to show that's a global effect. That's a bigger fight, a bigger picture, because it's the price of cocoa. It's similar for coffee, and then it goes back to maybe the costs that are associated with running the business. Everything has gone up. We all know it. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's bringing those cocoa beans from across the world. The cost is transferred to us. Every other week there's an email from the food supplier saying, "I'm really sorry, but it has to go up." And energy is colossal. It's everything that everyone is sort of just stressing, the major stressors on the businesses right now.
But I think to hear you speak about cocoa beans, it's just one small element of running a business like yours.
It's very small, yeah, it is. And look at this, what we're talking to, just it doesn't affect it because we buy it in at 0%, so it can't lean back to that anyway.
Again, pretty much every single raw ingredient, everything you bring into the business has. I suspect nothing has come down in price over in the few years since you set up.
No, not at all. But sure, that's just how it is, I suppose, for the moment, isn't it? It just makes our margins exceptionally thin. And I suppose when you add all the other little bits and bobs, you could argue, the living wage was increased and the sick pay was increased. So maybe the 4.5% reduction, when it does steady the ship, it'll really offset those few things that were hammered on already in the budget.
Absolutely, and I
think
there was an employers' body even just today talking about halting any future rises on the minimum wage until businesses can get a handle of.
It was too fast. It was too quick, and they threw in a couple of bank holidays there too, and then add in holiday pay. I suppose you only see the surface. You don't see collectively what it costs to be an employer in Ireland on a year-to-year basis.
Absolutely, and particularly when you're in a rural location as well, does that add to the challenges then? Is finding staff genuinely a problem in the sector?
No, we have great interest for working. Getting a skilled workforce and paying for them can be tricky, because that just goes into another realm, which I wouldn't be surprised if the RAI and ISME start maybe bubbling below the surface about that too. Also, that suddenly if you were able to give 6 or 7 part-timers work on Friday and Saturday, you're really thinking about that now. You really are, as an employer, because it is costing so much for maybe a lesser skilled workforce. And then where's the ceiling? It just goes round in circles, and it is probably a discussion for another day. But I suppose it's another cost that this reduction will help just kind of buffer that for the moment. You wouldn't begrudge anyone a pension increase. You wouldn't begrudge anybody their living wage. It's just that it's incredibly difficult to run a small business.
And sometimes when we talk about VAT rate coming down, people will say, the consumer or the customer is going to see a difference on that. I think it's fair to say for most customers, a 9% on a sandwich versus 13.5%, it's not going to change their life too much. It's not going to affect their pocket as much. No. Really, I think most businesses like yourselves will look at just using this money then, this little bit of a rebate to just kind of, basically put up the shutters and make sure your business can stay viable and look at offsetting those costs. Is it enough though?
Like I said, yes, pardon. No, is it enough?
Absolutely. Is it enough or is more needed? I mean, we heard Minister Burke saying that this is to support businesses like yours that are on the main streets in our towns and our villages around the Midlands. But is this enough, or do the government need to be looking at the next budget to really ring fence this and make sure that business like yours get every opportunity to survive?
It'll certainly help. Nobody's going to cut their nose off, spite their face. I think it's a constant thing. It took 18 months really to get this over the line. So, you have to constantly keep evolving with the times, I suppose. And for me, it wouldn't be enough. No, I've been hovering in the red, in and out of the overdraft, and that's okay, because at the beginning, I think when I spoke to you before, I just wanted the sustainable wage as a new business owner. And maybe I've just finally maybe got to that, and suddenly, boom, I'm back to where I nearly feel like I'd started, and that's sad. And little things, if I want to do a loan to grow, it's all well and good, but I can't benefit from the local enterprise officer supports and grants because I'd fall out with the requirements because I am hovering too close to the edge, you know. So is it enough? Look, it's great, it's fantastic, but just need more. I don't know what it is. If I go to business school in the morning, I'll be taught to run my business with maybe a staff costing of 25 to 35% of the revenue, but at the minute it's more like 45 to 50. That's what I'm saying. That's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But here we go. Look, it's great. It's great to get it, and we'll absolutely embrace it. But it does. Look, we'll see. I think the big question you say to customers maybe coming in tomorrow is like, oh, well, I see a difference, and just to manage those expectations would be the likelihood is no. I'm in many peer groups, and you know the general consensus is it is a support measure essentially. Let's get it steady, the ship stay afloat and get growing again, please God.
Well, I suppose you could say, will you see it tomorrow in the price you pay? Probably not, but the difference could be that businesses like yours, like Sip Coffee Garden, will still be there in a year's time or in 5 or 10 years' time. Nobody wants to see a scenario where the high streets or the streets are even more empty as well. So I think it's people like you deserve every opportunity because you've taken the chance, you've taken a risk, and you've always said you wanted to build more than just a coffee shop. It was going to be like a community hub because, again, that's missing from so many. And that should be, I think that should be kind of recognised, and you should get credit for that too. Yeah.
Ronan, we're busier than ever, and I've talked to people who've owned coffee shops that I would have looked up to before I ever opened my business, and they said, "Gosh, we haven't had anything catastrophic. Same as us, we haven't had any major breakdowns." But yet this time last year I was in a far better position, and I did nothing wrong. I've done everything similar. I've worked with business mentors. I've done everything I'm meant to be doing. And, you know, if there's no smoke without fire, so there just is that huge pressure. And hopefully, look at things will settle.
Hopefully.
And we'll drive it on. We'll be here, as you say.
There's nothing holding you back. It doesn't seem to whet your appetite or hold you back anyway. And look at Nicky, keep ploughing, keep going.
We're hugely supported. We're supported locally. It's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
And
we're very blessed.
That's great to hear, and that's what we need. And we need more of that. I think, for anyone listening, if you can, go out tomorrow and buy that coffee, buy that sandwich, buy that food in your local cafe and give them the boost that everybody needs, and let's keep you all going. Nicky, a pleasure as always. All the very best. And
no trouble at all.
That's fantastic. Nicky O'Callaghan there, the owner of Sip Coffee Garden in Ballymore, kind of laying it out exactly what it's like to run a hospitality business and how critical that reduction in VAT to 9% is for so many of our businesses, which the Department of Enterprise has acknowledged. But that can't be the end of it, I think. We need to see more, don't we, to keep all those brilliant businesses open. Now, time for a quick break. After that, you're going to meet the Managing Director of Grovelands Childcare. They're celebrating 30 years in business. They've just had a new acquisition in Athlone, and things are going from strength to strength. We'll talk to her in just a couple of moments.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
Regina Bushell is Managing Director of Grovelands Childcare, one of the Midlands' best-known early years providers. She's also President of Athlone Chamber of Commerce, and she dabbles a bit in amateur drama and many, many other things. But that certainly has not kept her focus off the business, because they've just announced another expansion at Athlone, adding to their operations and further investing in childcare capacity at a time when we all know demand is rising steadily. Very good evening, Regina, and I guess congratulations on the latest expansion. Tell us what's happened at Grovelands and what does the investment mean for families around the Athlone area?
Well, we're delighted to be taking over, I suppose, the Rail to Gal, which is up in Churchills near Cruson Church. We're taking on that service, which is wonderful. And I suppose really it's to continue to provide the highest quality care and early education that we have, as I say, noted for across Athlone, Tullamore and Mullingar. And we're very excited about it. There'll be a lot of work involved. And may I say at the start of this, my daughter Deirdre, is very much sort of what I say at the forefront of everything at the moment, because I've had some life complications get in the way. And there's a lot of work in it. And I'm just listening to your previous speaker there, Nicky. My goodness, like she just described so well all of the different challenges that are there for business at the moment, you know.
And of course, you had a major celebration recently, but if we look at even some of the numbers, like it's over 700 families now that you support, and your employee numbers are well above the 130, 140 at this point, so I can only imagine Nicky's words resonate with yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that article in the Westmeath Independent, I'd like to thank them for the coverage. It was great to get the acknowledgement, and you know, sort of see it in print sometimes makes you think around where we came from, really. And I'm actually 50 years in business this year. Ronan and I are actually going to be celebrating 50 years of our marriage this year. And it's you know, we're excited about that and celebrating that with our family in July, and we're looking forward to getting everybody together. And when we look at where we've come from over those number of years, it is amazing that I started on my own. When I started working with my mother first, and she started a preschool, a Nina, in her own home in the I think I was only about 10 or so at the time, to save the Irish language. And I started working with her when I left school, and when we got married, I opened my own preschool. So that was me, sort of myself, and I wanted to do it. And Ronan's financial assistance helped me to put things in place around that. And we've grown it from there, me and 10 children, to having 140 of a team that makes Grovelands Childcare what it is today. And we've had some wonderful people working with us all through those years to bring us to where we are today.
And you had a big celebration to mark that, and actually you've a number of staff members who have been with you from the start of Grovelands.
We have a number of staff members who are with us well over 20 years, and that is an amazing achievement. We've had people who came to us for childcare, who did their training for us, who are now working for us, and we have parents, obviously children now that were children back then, bringing their own children into us now, and it's just fantastic to see that, and for that, you know, to listen to, I suppose, their testimonials of the time that they remember when they were in. I suppose I started in Railway View in Athlone, and then we moved to Retreat Park, and then we moved from there to our first premises outside of the home, which was Grovelands on the Ballymahon Road. So we kept the name Grovelands for all of our centres at that stage. So like it has grown. There have been numerous challenges along the way, from recessions to COVID, to, I suppose, the challenges we're facing at the moment as to whether it's a nationalisation of the sector and working in partnership for, you know, sort of trying to get the department to work in partnership with us. There's a lot of politics, as you know, and very involved for a long time in advocating for the childcare sector overall, and lately for children with complex additional needs, which is hugely important, that we try and meet their needs, and if we can't meet their needs, that there are resources there for them. So like there is such a lot going on, but from a business perspective, the challenges are there for every business at the moment, and I see that through my work with the Chamber as well, and particularly the small to medium-sized businesses there who are coping with a lot of changes and a lot of transitions that needs to be done. So it is complex, but I think, you know, if people who are committed, like your previous speaker there, in providing a quality service, we want to continue to provide those quality services. And government is piling an awful lot onto us at the moment. And while they can most services can address the cost of delivering that service. We're caught into a system with the Department of Children at the moment into core funding where we can't adjust our rates and decide that we're going to increase our prices. Yeah, that is hugely complex for us at the moment.
Absolutely heard like similar things from transport operators or bus operators working for the department too, that they were locked into fixed rates and couldn't even rise them when the diesel prices went up. And again, to hear yourself speaking about that from a business of your scale too, you mentioned how you've been done a lot of lobbying over the years, particularly in the early years stuff at government level. Are things changing? Like, is that conversation moving in the right direction now? Like, are we getting closer to developing, be it a nationalised model or a model that really meets the needs of, like, not just a growing population, but a workforce that has changed, hugely since COVID in how it works and where it works?
Well, I suppose that is the real problem for us at the moment, Ronan, because the department, through the, their programme for government, offered us a partnership. That has not happened. It just has not happened. And regardless of questions that will be put at question times to them, they'll come back with the same answers. They haven't answered the fundamental questions that we're looking for at the moment. Where is our sector going for the future? Because at the moment, for sustainability, we need to know what they're thinking. The majority of providers in this country actually do want to work in partnership with them. I have told them this, sitting at forum tables in the department on numerous occasions. I have asked for a real partnership. In actual fact, it was me who asked for a provider forum for early years so that we could actually sit down and talk to them as providers and see where we're going. That hasn't happened. We have huge problems with recruitment, with budgets, with training, with maintenance, compliance, and all of the policies that they bring out. And in particular, we've heard them talking about planning today. I mean, for years we've been saying the planning needs to be reviewed, where they put a childcare service in every 75 houses. It is more than clear it's not working. And I met with Norma Foley on this directly and asked for it to be reviewed. And still there is nothing clear coming out of those meetings. So it is hugely, I suppose, look, I don't want to sound like I'm being totally negative here because there is so many things to be so excited about. And if you watch the children and what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis, those children are being looked after so amazingly well every single day. And sometimes I suppose the question for us is, do the government actually realise the amazing value for money that they're actually getting at the moment from the providers who are delivering those services all around the country? We think that they don't, and it's only if they nationalise it that they'll find that out in the long term. But I want to work with them. The providers that I represent through the organisation which I founded for the employers in the country, those providers, Chassuas, I bring their views to the table on that. The majority of them want to work with the government, but I'm seeing more and more of them pulling out of core funding because they can't make ends meet.
And in terms of that operating model, is there evidence across the EU or somewhere else worldwide that shows that it is not just a feasible but an entirely sustainable model and maybe something that is absolutely a necessity for the sector?
Well, I'll tell you this, from my research on this, every single country is having a problem at the moment. But it's funny you should mention the EU because I'm actually, Karen Mullooly has invited me to go to the European Parliament with them. And I'm going there both hopefully in my position as president of Athlone Chamber, but also to represent the childcare sector. There are things that obviously at EU level that one can discuss. There's other things that you can't, core funding is not something they'd look at. But we're having difficulties in other areas that I can discuss with our EU representatives, with our MEPs, and hopefully I get the opportunity to do that when I meet with them. But a lot has happened, and a lot has happened that is extremely positive. Parents are getting amazing value for money at the moment through the National Childcare Scheme. That's hugely positive for parents. At the same time, for us to continue delivering the quality of childcare that we want to deliver, and early education. I mean, childcare is one side of what we do. Yes, we have to care for the children, but the early education that we provide for those children every day is hugely important in their foundation, if you like. We're getting them in the first 3 years of life, and obviously going to school at 5 years of age. And those early years are so important for those children. And that's why I'm talking about children with disability as well. Those children, they need those services in the first 5 years. If we can't give it to them. And by the way, we have a high number of children who attend our services with different additional needs, and they all go to school very successful after completing their ECCE years. So it is really, really important. But it is really important that the department understand the value for money it's already receiving from those existing network of providers that are there. And if I had one thing to ask, it would be, please realise that we want to work in partnership. But partnership is an awful lot of things. It's understanding, where we're coming from, and meeting us more than halfway on it, because right now at the moment they present us the contracts to sign and they don't discuss those with us. I want to continue, and I know my daughter Dee, and can I say my managers and supervisors and the whole team and all of the educators that work for us have a mission and a vision. And that mission and vision is to provide the highest quality care and early education.
Yeah,
and that children have a wonderful experience.
We certainly never doubted you about that. I think it's wonderful to hear you talk about looking at people who started in early education with yourselves, who are now bringing their kids in, and the fact that actually your own children are now part of the business too. It's a lovely circular story as well. You've definitely put a call out there, Regina. I'd say many people are listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing how your trip to the EU Parliament goes. But for now, have a glass of wine, enjoy the 30 years of Grovelands, the 50 years in childcare, and enjoy the next steps as well, because it sounds like you're not taking your foot off the pedal anytime soon.
I'm not taking my foot off the pedal, and can I ask the parents that are listening to us there to please support your childcare provider in whatever part of the country you're in. We need the parents to get behind us on this, because we don't want providers sort of taking any actions at all that's going to put them out. We know how important care and early education is to both the economy and to children, and we want to absolutely have the parents behind us. So if parents are listening, we need your support.
Oh, there you go.
That is really important as well.
Well said. Thanks a million, Regina. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Ronan.
Not at all.
Enjoyed talking to you.
An absolute pleasure as always. Regina Bushell, they're Managing Director of Grovelands Childcare. So there you have it. Again, call to action there from many businesses about support, and I think I said that myself about even our hospitality business. Let's get out and support them in any way we can, and Regina just called there for you to support your local early years provider as well. It's so important to keep this whole Midlands economy booming and thriving. Now, if you're in the haulage sector and you've got the news that tomorrow the cuts on the excise duty on petrol and diesel will be extended, is it good news? How long will it last? Well, we'll find out with Ger Hyland just after this quick break.
Taking care of business with thanks to the local enterprise offices of Laois, Offaly and Westmeath. Find us on localenterprise.ie and let's talk business.
The government has just confirmed that it will extend the temporary reductions in fuel excise until the 1st of September before gradually restoring the fuel rates later this year. What does that mean if we look at the numbers behind it? Well, in April, you remember, the excise duty on petrol and diesel was cut by 27 cent and 32 cent a litre respectively, but that's been extended until the 1st of September. After that, we should see a 9 cent increase on each litre of petrol and 10 cent on diesel. From October the 1st, it'll be 8 cent on both petrol and diesel. Then November, there'll be a 5 cent increase on petrol and 7 cent on diesel. And it continues to go back up to where the price are. A lot has probably changed since April in terms of the Middle East, and is that in fact affecting things? And I suppose to begin with, are these supports enough for people in the sector? Well, Ger Hyland is Managing Director of Hyland Transport in Ronan. He's also the President of Irish Road Haulage Association. Evening, Ger.
Good evening. Thanks for having us on.
Is this welcome news, Ger?
Absolutely, very welcome news. I'll go back to the first meeting that we had with Minister O'Brien regarding the issues and the escalating fuel prices in the Middle East. We went in there on a morning at 10 o'clock. We had a fairly robust meeting with him. We pulled 20 cents a litre of a reduction in the price of diesel. And when we went back down the stairs and out the door, that 20 cents had been eaten up in increases in less than 2 hours. So, look, we had an open door with him. We went back in again. We renegotiated again with him, and we got supports for our industry. We certainly didn't get everything we looked for, but we got enough to keep a lot of the transport sector afloat in this country. Over the last couple of weeks, there was talks of the 32 cent a litre going back on the diesel. We again lobbied government. We lobbied all our local TDs. Carol Nolan here in Offaly was a huge support to us. And we went back into government again, and we claimed that we were responsible for getting government to keep these fuel supports until September. The Middle East, while there is a ceasefire there of somewhat, there is still issues in the Middle East. Fuel again today has rose by 1.7 cents a litre. Diesel has rose this evening by 1.7 cents a litre, where I was trying to buy fuel again for tomorrow. So while the fuel supports are there until September, we as a transport industry got a huge price shock early on in the year. We need these supports to remain in place, and we will be asking the government again, depending on what happens in the Middle East, to further expand them supports come September if there's still issues in the Middle East.
Of course, like we're at the 1st of July tomorrow. September maybe in the head seems a long way away, but it's only a matter of 8 and a bit weeks, so it won't be long whipping round. And undoubtedly a busy period for people in haulage, because you probably have lots of work with agriculture, everything across the country. So is it going to be enough, or what needs to happen between now and then to make sure that people aren't looking at maybe the autumn or winter and wondering, will I still be in business?
Well, look, there has to be a very close eye kept on the cost of fuel, whether fuel goes up or goes down. If you were to put back the 32 cents a litre on fuel today, at today's prices, the fuel would be still way too dear for our members and for a viable transport industry. If this country doesn't have a viable transport industry, this country will not have an economy. For example, with the fuel supports that the government gave us, and I have to say, they were welcome. They were one of the first governments in Europe to do it, and them fuel supports reduced the inflation in this country by 0.8 cents to 1 cent, somewhere between 0.8 and 1 cent, which is huge in the Irish economy.
And it might bring that little bit of stability that is needed from it. Are you noticing, like, say with your own members, are people content with the supports at the minute? Like, is it keeping them where they need to be, or is there fears about where things could go or lead to? Because I guess, look back the last 5 years, there's been nothing but major shocks anyway.
People are reasonably content where we are at the minute, and it'll depend on what the escalating situation is in the Middle East, or whether it de-escalates.
And any talk at government level or even in corridors of Leinster House about alternatives, about new approaches, different fuel systems? Because we see with a lot of business over the last couple of years, there's been a huge push towards solar or renewable energies, and I think year on year there's more supports coming in. Is there anything being discussed at transport level that could, let's say, lessen the impact of future fuel price rises?
Us as an association, we're in with both Ministers for Transport last week. We're in with Minister O'Brien and Minister Kenny. We put proposals to them. We put a budget proposal to them that they would support HVO, which is hydrated vegetable oil. It's a product that derives from oilseed rape, where you see the yellow flower in the fields all around the country at this time of the year, and that would reduce our carbon footprint by 90% tomorrow morning if we had supports for HVO. If we get the supports for HVO, it will be self-financing because of the fines that's coming down Ireland's way from Europe over carbon.
That would be some whack to take off the emissions straight away, provided we can separate it out from the... Because I remember before you said the HVO price was still up because the whole process was still dependent on fossil fuels. So again, if the right moves are made, it certainly sounds encouraging. Ger, thanks as always for dropping in this evening and for giving us the update on those fuel supports. Again, an important day for many people in your sector tomorrow too.
Hugely, yes. Thank you very much.
Not a pleasure, Ger. And I say, like, a very important day for people in food service and hospitality tomorrow too, with that VAT rate dropping back to 9%. You heard from Nicky O'Callaghan, the owner of Sip Coffee Garden in Ballymore earlier, who really laid it out kind of blankly, the impact that increase in costs have on a business and how important that reduction is for them. We also heard from Bernie Everard at the start of the show, the network manager for Midlands Flavours. Bernie put a call out there that if you're looking to get space in their tent at the Ploughing Championships, to get in touch there and get your expression of interest in. And you also heard from Regina Bushell. They're marking 30 years in Grovelands Childcare and really putting a call out for us to support our local childcare providers, and a call out for government too. Thank you. Hope this evening's been useful for you. It'll be podcast tomorrow on midlands103.com. I'll talk to you all next week.